Can I have your attention for a minute? Can everybody get seated or positioned? We offer several positions. Look at that, there's still people coming through the door, it's great. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who came tonight for this stalwart effort to come out and support Wally and his book and Igneus Press, and to brave the elements, and then come here and brave a whole other set of elements. This is it's almost like a coven of sibyls here or something. But I guess the things, I just want to chat for a second about Igneus Press and what kind of where it started and what it was about and where we're hopefully going. I guess the big stumper is I haven't figured out whether it was conceived in my station wagon or Bill Kemet's 15 years ago on Cambridge Street, but one or the other. It was one of those two station wagons, or both. And I think it was a matter of us sitting around. We're all starting to get some years on us, 45, 50, 55 years, and we're starting to look at this whole thing as kind of a geometry and, where's our place in it? What are we trying to do? I'm getting tired of walking like an old Yankee with his hat in his hand into the bank for a loan, trying to suck butt this poetry mafia. And too young to hang out in too old to hang out in street corners, I suppose. And so, some of the thoughts that, Wally and Bill and myself all went round and round. I think probably initially we thought we'd probably do a magazine or something. And things, like I've always said, karma doesn't work that way. It really works plink, plink, plink. It's not just, the summation. It's like, boom, boom, boom. And the way it kind of moved on was we chatted about to the point where we couldn't say anymore without doing it. And one day, Wally comes up to me on Boylston Street. I'm about to read up at New Writers, and attacks me on the sidewalk on the way down, and says, "I've got a manuscript." Okay, so we sat down with that and went through it. And I talked to Bill, and Bill wasn't sure if it was a good idea or not. He thought it was a wonderful manuscript. Wally's a well-published poet. Should we be doing this on the side or whatever? I put those thoughts past Wally and wanted him to think about it, and he was pretty sure he wanted to move right. He wasn't completely sure he wanted to move ahead and do it with me. So there's been a lot of sifting along the way, and I think the point was that we made our mind that we're going to do it. And then, in the process of doing it, we really set some very stringent schedules, and we really kept to each one of them. We're going to have a script ready at this date, we're going to have typeset at this date, we're going to have a book by this date. And he and I worked like hell together. It was wonderful. And I think, one of the themes of what Igneus was trying to do is we feel, what I feel, and I think Wally worked with me on this, that you should be able to work with a publisher and a writer. You should be able to work together with a real sense of cooperation. And it should be a loving, spiritual event. It should be something in which the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. It should be a collaborative art, a higher form than something that's done by the self in solitude. And I feel, for my part, and I think Wally will say the same thing, it was a wonderful experience like that. Many weekends at my house, many going over this and that. We were talking about it on the way down tonight, and I think the only disagreements we had were aesthetic disagreements. They weren't really in terms of values of what we were doing or doing. That was great. I won't bore you with the process of it, but I think what's going to happen, I think where we're going to go from this point, I've got a couple other manuscripts. I think in the middle of this process of us talking about doing this press, comes out a book by now, hopefully, two friends of mine, Bob Snyder and Peter Laska, and the deceased Joe Barrett, called Old Martin New Strength, which to me is a reaffirmation of the same thing that we're talking about here in the East Coast. coming out of West Virginia, and there's three guys getting together and doing a book that, to me, is saying, listen, this 70s, 80s, me deal sucks. And there's got to be some reinstallation of a group soul, of using a project for a focus that's greater than the individual egos involved. And that was for us, that was a real reaffirming thing about where we were headed. And I thank them for that. It was very timely. So I think where we're going to go from here is that basically we're here, we're sharing what we're doing, we're trying to sell you books. If you don't have money for a book, we're asking for your friendship, your support, your talking up the book. Our idea is to basically roll this book over to get the dollars to go on to the next manuscripts. I have 2 manuscripts sitting on my desk right now, which are both wonderful, both need publishing. One by Bill Kennett, another one by Peter Laska. And I have great hopes. I think that for the next 2 or 3 years that I have a real vision of what we're going to do, and I think we're going to get it done. And we need your help too to do it. I think there's a place for all you folks in this kind of an idea. I'd like to now introduce Wally Butts, who's a dear friend of mine, aka Wally Newport, aka W.E. Butts. We met 12 years or so ago, Stone Soup. We were instant friends. Wally's done many things over those years. One, the least of which, but very important, was the Newbury Bookstore in those days, which created a second venue aside from Stone Soup that was open, and brought in a whole bunch of new people and a whole bunch of new spirits into the Boston area at that time. He did White Raven Press, which put out some wonderful books. I believe he put out one of Bill's books. Was Keith's book there?
Yes.
All White Raven? Yeah.
Keith Cosmack.
Yeah, Keith is here, right here in front, okay. And he has, I don't know, I guess my feeling was when Wally came to me, he was right. You know, he had a manuscript that was 10, 12 years worth of hard work. He had sifted it down, and he was the man. He was the person to take off with from the beginning. I think, I've said it before, and I've read it in poems before. I've had closure lines or whatever, smart-ass lines. They've said there's only 4 or 5 narrative poets in every generation, and Wally Butts is one of them. And I still believe that. What I like so much about his poems is his concern for the human being, you know, the humanity of it, the mortality that brings the poems, you know. And there's such a kindness to them that I think that it's accessible and it's meaningful to each and all of us. I've always been kindred to Wally, and after working the last 6 months with him now, I now feel kindred with his poetry, and I'm very comfortable with that. Thank you very much. This is Wally Butts.
Thank you. Very much. This is the first time, about 5 or 6 years ago, they invented the system for poets reading with a microphone, and you had to stand real rigid behind this thing, you know, and I'm real grateful that that's not happening, you know. If I get behind a microphone, I just lose it, you know, I can't read what I have a couple of requests. One request is to explain the cover. The cover of this book is a child dancing on a rock. And I had the idea of the title of The Recorded Dance for a while. A friend of mine, the poet Robert Lawson, suggested it to me. I thought a bunch of titles over ideas. And I liked it. So I had the title, and there were a couple of visual ideas going on around it. One was a photograph of penguins dancing off a rock. Another was ballroom dancing. And we just didn't know what we wanted to do. So I showed up at Peter's house. And